guys, it's Dog Vinyl again. A little version of a song you may not have heard before. Billy Joel's first album. And this is a version you don't hear often. Interesting artist. So I'll turn this down to get the show on, but I just thought I'd open up a little Billy Joel. So, as I said, today's Billy Joel. But before we get into our discography and history of Billy Joel and the Billy Joel Band, I'd like to talk about a couple of things. First of all, the first thing is we have a giveaway today. We have a MoFi Giveaway. I'm going to talk about that for the first viewer that will mention the Doc Vinyl Show and the Billy Joel Doc Vinyl Show in particular. Will get a free MoFi giveaway at the Max J Record Store in Fairhaven, Massachusetts. Okay? And I'll talk a little bit more about that towards the end. Second thing I'd like to talk about is subscribers. We have over 200 subscribers, which is great. I'm hoping to get some more, so I'm looking forward to more subscriptions. If you like the content, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. I'd also appreciate input. Let me know what you guys are looking for. Some response to some of the shows I do, maybe some suggestions for new shows, new ideas. And there'll be more promotional giveaways and things in the future. We'll talk about certain things that'll be kind of fun. Do with the bands. Just saw Kansas, as you saw, they just played on Friday, so I'll be doing them in a future show, which would be great. Talk a little bit about Kansas and what I thought of the show and the band and what have you, but that'll be for another show. So again, if you like the content, please subscribe. All right, I'm going to jump right into Billy Joel. Now, Billy Joel's one of my personal bands, one of my personal favorites. I grew up with them. I remember being a small child. In 1977, I was about 9 years old, and my mother bought the Stranger album and heard it ad nauseum. Ever since then, I've been pretty much exposed to Billy Joel throughout his career and always had Billy Joel music in my collection, whether it be CDs, vinyl, my phone, wherever, iPod. So let's talk a little bit about Billy Joel, where he came from, what he did. There's a kind of an interesting story about the early here. I got some nice notes here at the beginning. Billy Joel was, he dropped out of high school. Actually, when he was 16 to join a band, and he played a lot of cover bands when he was 16, 17 years old. And he was a piano player, and he played pretty well. He had a lot of lessons when he was young, and he did some singing. He joined a band in 1966 called the Hassles. He had some commercial success, not a ton, just a little bit, from 66 to 69. And they had two albums, a self-titled The Hassles, and then the other one, Hour of the Wolf, which came out in 1969. And then the band kind of dissolved or broke up. And Billy Joel and the drummer at the time, which I believe was John Small, left that band and formed a new band in 1969 called Attila. Now, this is a very interesting, if you could get some of this, and this is really could be considered prog heavy metal rock. So Billy Joel sang some like heavy metal, and people are like, what? It's obviously much different than what he did later. But if you think about the time period in 1969, what was coming out, like In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida by Iron Butterfly, Deep Purple, Black Sabbath. So there was a lot of interest in this heavier rock style. So you could see that they did some experimentation with it. Billy Joel doesn't make any favorable comments about the album, but it's interesting enough. And then they kind of break up. John Small does, and I guess one of the reasons for it, it's kind of an interesting story. Billy Joel runs away with his girlfriend, Elizabeth Small, and then later marries her, of course. So that probably created some animosity between him and his drummer, so he went out and started to form a new band, and went on to his solo career in 1971. He signed a contract with Family Productions, and came out with the album Cold Spring Harbor. And the person, Tripp, that produced this album, owned the rights to a lot of his music and stuff. There's a lot of battles going back and forth between him and when he finally signed with Columbia in the next album. But that was kind of interesting. So we're going to talk about each and one as we go along here, as the bands go along. Now, in 1971, this album came out with very little fanfare. This one's called Cold Spring Harbor. Billy Joel. This is an original. It's a hard album to get. And this is the original. One of the reasons you can tell it's an original is that you can read the labels here on here. And this actually been counterfeited, which is weird enough. And this is a Family Productions label. And it's a mixed messages. Some of the stuff is played. The big hit on this album that later becomes even a bigger hit when they re-release it on Songs in the Attic is the song She's Got Away, which I opened up with. That's from side one. And you got You Can Make Me Free, Everybody Loves You Now, Why Judy Why, and Falling of Rain. Side 2 is Turnaround, You Look So Good to Me, Tomorrow Is Today, Nocturnes, and Got to Begin Again. Not really earth-shattering hits on this album, but really the beginning of Billy Joel, which is very, very interesting. And I like it. I think it's a good album. It's got a nice sound to it. It's a Billy Joel voice. It's really the introduction. Let's see how little young he is. He's very young on the album here. And this is really the beginning of Billy Joel's career. Now, he is again signed to Family Productions. Then he's discovered by Columbia and produced his second album in 1973, which of course is much bigger, by Columbia, called Piano Man. And this album was produced by William James Guercio, who also produced Chicago at the time. And this was a little bit of a bigger album. This had a lot more hits on it. This had 2 songs that later became pretty popular, especially by playing on the radio. We have Captain Jack, Traveling Prayer, Worst Comes to Worst, Stoppin' in Nevada. The Ballad of Billy the Kid, which was a really good one, Somewhere Along the Line. And then, of course, Piano Man, If I Only Had the Words to Tell You, and You're My Home, Ain't No Crime. Now, this album, of course, the song Piano Man was the one that really made it very, very big. And this was signed on Columbia, as you can see here. And this is his Columbia years. The majority of his work was done on Columbia label. And this album, very well received. Again, mixed studio band. We don't really have a band with Billy Joel until we get to the Turnstiles album in a minute. This comes out 2 years after his first album. There was some legal ramblings between his first producer from Family Productions and, of course, Columbia. Now that Columbia took care of it, and William James Guercio. But Phil Ramone went on to produce the rest of his albums that I cover here. Now, again, this is not a complete discography because I don't have his Rivers of Dreams and his classical album, which were the last 2 albums he did. Kind of difficult to get. They usually sold out or whatever, but this is the majority of his work that everybody knows. So yeah, the big one on this one was Piano Man. Very cool, great album. Captain Jack was one of my favorites too. Very cool song about life and what have you and everything, really good. So that came out in 73. And then 1974 comes out his next album on Columbia. This is called Street Life Serenade. Now Street Life Serenade was really about, again, the inner city urban life, but also he makes a good comment in the big hit on this album called The Entertainer about cutting his song down to 3:05, which is kind of interesting. Very cool. This is, of course, Billy Joel's album with, as you can see here, with Columbia, and this one is produced by, I believe this one's produced by Phil Ramone, which I think is the first one. Billy Joel doesn't tell you. Produced by Mike Stewart. I think Phil Ramone's the next album. I'm sorry, but this particular album, the songs on this album are Street Life Serenade, which is actually really good. Now he starts to get his own sound now. Los Angeles, The Great Suburban Showdown, Root Beer Rag, which is a really great instrumental that he plays. Very, very competent piano player, by the way. Roberto. And then side 2 is The Entertainer, which was the big hit on this album. Last of the Big Time Spenders, Weekend Song, Souvenir, The Mexican Connection. Very good, very solid effort by him, but still not putting him on the map just yet. This album, Columbia was kind of like wanting more out of him, wanting more hits and what have you. And he was getting his feet wet. Very good album, 1974. Next album comes out in 1975. This is Turnstiles. Now, Turnstiles, I believe, is the first album produced by Phil Ramone. Now, Turnstiles is kind of a definitive album for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's also the first album to have his band. And that would include members of his first band, which is Doug Stegmeyer on bass, Liberty DeVito on drums, who really is a permanent fixture in the band up until the 1990s. Russell, and then he has Russell Javors on electric and acoustic guitars, and this also has Howie Emerson on guitars, but also has Richie Conato on horns. So this is really the beginning of the Billy Joel band. And this album comes out in 1970. I'm sorry, it says 1976 here, but I thought it was 75, but 76. And this album, really, really cool. Lots of good hits on this. This has Say Goodbye to Hollywood, Summer Highland Falls, New York State of Mind. Say Goodbye to Hollywood and New York State of Mind were the 2 big hits on this album. Then there's Prelude to Angry Young Man, which is Angry Young Man was really cool with the piano intro, with that really cool piano intro. The Love These Days in Miami 2017. Very, very cool album. I think it's really the first album that kind of started to show some real success for Billy Joel. People started to get interested in what kind of music he was doing. This comes out in 76, and again, this is really the first one to really feature his band, who would be his band for the next couple of albums. Now, the next album comes out in 1977. It's probably one of his most famous albums of all times, and of course, it's called The Stranger. This is the album that I was introduced. My mother had bought. She saw Billy Joel, loved him, and then this album is just amazing. This album is produced by Phil Ramone. And this album has the same band I mentioned before. And this album is, it's like Fleetwood Mac Rumors. This album is just basically greatest hits. Let me just read off the songs on it. Moving Out Anthony song, great song, big hit there. The Stranger, another big hit. Just the Way You Are, another big hit. And then Scenes from Italian Restaurant. All four of those songs, major radio staples. Side 2, Vienna, one of my personal favorites. Only the Good Die Young, which is probably one of his favorite songs everyone likes. She's Always a Woman, Getting It Right the First Time, and Everybody Has a Dream. Almost every song on this album is a big hit. And this is a Columbia First Press, as you can see right here. Beautiful album, really, really cool. This is the album that goes, I think, massively platinum. He sells over 10 million copies of this album. This is one of the most successful albums for Columbia, from what I read. And this really makes Billy Joel a superstar. All right. And from here on out, we're going to see album after album that just comes out with hits and hit after hit. And he has videos and music and what have you. His next album that comes out, Billy Joel, 52nd Street. This comes out in 1978, I believe, if I'm correct. Again, produced by Phil Ramone. And yeah, this comes out in 1978. This has Big Shot. This has Honesty, My Life, Stiletto, Zanzibar, Half a Mile Away, 52nd Street, and Rosalinda's Eyes. Again, just an amazing album. Another hit. Not that The Stranger was big. This album follows up with quite a few big hits on it himself. 1978 release, Phil Ramone, same band. Libby DeVito, Doug Stegmeyer, Canadas. Really great stuff. Awesome, awesome stuff. So as we move along, we're looking at his next album, Glass House, which I think comes out in 1980. I think he took a year off on this one. This one was in 1980. Yep, 1980. And guess what's on this? Everyone knows the songs on this. This has a bunch of hits on it. Let me just pull it off the album. It's just a lot easier that way. This has You May Be Right. Of course, that's been in a couple of shows. Sometimes a Fantasy. Don't Ask Me Why. It's Still Rock and Roll to Me. All for Lena. So that's a bunch of hits on that side. And then he has Don't Want to Be Alone, Sleeping with the Television On, C'est Toi, You Were the One, Close to the Borderline, and Through the Long Night. Again, side one, just loaded with hits. Just a really, really great Billy Joel album. And that's Glass Houses. And again, at this point, we're really looking at top-notch Billy Joel material here. Next album that comes out in 1982, I think it was. I think it was 82. Because I remember when this album came out, too. I'm pretty sure about that. Am I right? Again, produced by Phil Ramone. And this album is, was I correct? 1982? And I was. This has Allentown, Laura, Pressure. That's a good song. Good Night, Saigon. About his Vietnam friends. She's Right on Time. A Room of Our Time. Surprises. Scandinavian Skies. And Where's the Orchestra? Again, maybe not as big as the other two albums, but still a great follow-up. And this was Nylon Curtain, especially with the first two songs there. So very, very cool. Now, his next album comes out, Remember My Mother Bought. This is 1984, I think. This one I think is 84, and this is, of course, An Innocent Man. And this is when he, of course, was in a relationship with Christy Brinkley, which just has all the Christy Brinkley songs on it and everything. And was I right? Yes, 1983. This has Easy Money and Innocent Man, The Longest Time, For the Longest Time, whoa. And it has a kind of a 50s doo-wop thing going on there. This Night's Tell Her About It, Uptown Girl, which, of course, the video features Christy Brinkley. Careless Talk, Christy Lee, which is about, obviously, Christy Brinkley. Leave a Tender Moment Alone, and Keeping the Faith. Again, loaded with hits. Very, very big album. Very popular album. Really, really cool stuff. Innocent Man, 1983. Again, he really dominated the charts and even the videos at that time. Next album comes out, and I believe this came out when I graduated high school in 1986. I'm pretty sure this is called The Bridge, and I'm pretty sure it's 1986. It's going to be, let's see if I'm 100% sure on that one. And 1986. Yes, it was. Yeah, see, a lot of these albums I bought. I mean, I bought them when they came out, so it wasn't like, that's why I kind of remember them. This has Running on Ice. Really good, cool piano. This is the Time, A Matter of Trust. Modern Woman, Baby Grand, which he does a duet with Ray Charles on this one. Big Man on Mulberry Street, Temptation, Code of Silence, and Getting Closer. Again, really, really cool. Great Billy Joel album. A very kind of underrated one. One of my favorites, The Bridge. I really, really like the songs on it and the effort on it. It was really, really cool. Good stuff. Now, the last album that I'm going to cover is studio albums. His big one was Stormfront, and this came out in 1989. Stormfront had quite another big hit on this one. This one of course had We Didn't Start the Fire. Harry Truman, Doris Day, Red China, Johnny Ray, which really became big. Had Down East Alexa, I Go to Extremes, good song. Shameless, Side 2, Stormfront, Leningrad, State of Grace, When and Home, and So It Goes. And this album leads into the next album I'm going to show, which is not technically a studio album, but a live album, which was a Russian tour of his stuff. And this album and that album are very much connected, even though this is the last real studio album that I'm going to cover in this show. He did River of Dreams and then did a classical album, which didn't yield as many hits. But these are the albums that I just covered, or the really, really big ones that everyone's really interested in. This is Co-Help. And this was, of course, his 2-album collection. And this, of course, is his tour in the Soviet Union in 1989 when the walls came down. And this has a lot of good stuff on it if you ever want to get it. I had it on CD, and then I got it on vinyl. It's got Odoya, Angry Young Man, Honesty, Goodnight Saigon, Stiletto, Big Man on Melbury Street, Baby Grand, An Innocent Man, Allentown, A Matter of Trust, Only the Good Die Young, Sometimes a Fantasy, Uptown Girl, Big Shot, and then he closes with Back in the USSR and the Times They Are Changing, which Back in the USSR, of course, is a Beatles cover. So, great album. Great, great, great stuff. That's Billy Joel. Like I said, 2 other albums, River of Dreams and the classical album, which didn't sell as well, but still worthy to take a peek at. Now, let me follow up the 2 things I want to talk about. One thing I want to talk about is a new Billy Joel box set that's been released. It's available at Max J Records, and I happen to have it right here to show you on the show. It's called, this one's called Billy Joel, The Vinyl Collection, Volume 1. Now, this is just amazing. If I didn't have all these albums, I would have definitely got this. This is all digitally remastered, all analog remastered, his first albums I just showed you. Cold Spring Harbor, Piano Man, Street Life Serenade, Turnstiles, The Stranger, 52nd Street, and Songs in the Attic, which Songs in the Attic, of course, was a greatest hits with some stuff. It also has a live at the Great American Music Hall in 1975 and has this beautiful 52-page book. As you can see, really, really nice. You're getting 8 albums. This is 8 vinyl box set, including what I just said, and the previously unreleased live at the Great American Music Hall. That's 2 LPs, by the way. And plus a 50-page booklet highlighting Billy Joel's career. Really, really cool. This is just an amazing, amazing collection. I mean, just look at that. I mean, just look at all that. Look at all that vinyl. That's a lot of vinyl. And if you don't have any Billy Joel and you want to get some on vinyl, this is a way to get it. I mean, I hunted these down, and some of these I've had from before, so it's tough to get one in good shape. You don't have to do that with this. This is just, and this is Volume 1. Volume 2 will be the rest of it. So you get these 2 volumes, and you'll have everything Billy Joel's ever done. Very, very cool. Okay? So that's at Max J Records. At limited time, so I'd definitely take a peek at that if you would like to pick that up. Now, let's follow up the store with what I talked about with the MoFi giveaway. For the first person to mention this show in the store at Max J Records will get a free MoFi stylus brush. See? Everyone see that? And right here. Now, this is very important to maintain your turntable. It's a small stylus brush right here, as you can see right there. I'll bring it up even closer so you can see right there. And that right there is to clean your stylus. Kind of important thing to do that you should do every couple of times. After every couple albums you play, you should put a little alcohol or a cleaning solution in. John sells it at the store. And you just kind of very gently always pull forward to clean your stylus. And this is a great thing to do. A lot of people forget to clean their stylus and they see all this dust buildup, and it can even cause the album to, the needle to skip. And it's nothing wrong with the album. It's just there's so much dust in the way that it does. So it really is important to clean the stylus periodically, and this is a great way of doing it. And again, the first person to mention the show will get a free MoFi stylus brush. There you go. Cool. All right. Well, that's the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Really, some really cool Billy Joel stuff. I'll probably be covering some more bands next week. I have a couple of more bands in focus. And again, the giveaways at Max J Records. For the first person to mention the Doc Vinyl show will get the MoFi stylus brush. All right, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. Hope it was informative and fun. Again, if you like the content, please subscribe. And that's Doc Vinyl for now. You guys take it easy.